Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming out today for the Culpeper Minutemen Virginia Society Sons of the American Revolution ceremony for the forgotten patriots of Culpeper County. And at this time, I'd like to have past President Tom Hamill provide an invocation for us.
Please rise as you're able. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you that we can be here today to honor these men who helped create this great nation in your image and your desire. Be with us as we honor them and help us to honor the founding of this country as well. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Color Guard Commander, post the colors. And now Patrick Edrington to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Is Patrick here? Yep.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Flag there, shoulder flag. Post the colors. Shoulder large. Honor guard, one step forward. Left, peace. Go right.
And now,
forward, march.
Your SAR pledge can be found on the back of your programs if you would read it with me. Starting with, we descendants of the heroes of the American Revolution, who by their sacrifices established the United States of America, reaffirm our faith in the principles of liberty and our constitutional republic, and solemnly pledge ourselves to defend them against every foe.
thank you, Charles. Now I'd like to introduce, everybody can be seated. Thank you. Sorry.
We don't do anything without instructions.
I'd like to introduce Mayor Frank Reeves. He's here with us today. Appreciate his support. And Board of Supervisors Chairman Dave Dower. And now I'd like to welcome Vassar President Bill Grief, and he'll give some greetings.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. I bring greetings on behalf of the 2,000 members and 30 chapters of the Virginia Society Sons of the American Revolution. This is a great start to Black History Month. We had a service yesterday at Warsaw, and the SAR members know this, but this is my last official event as president as we change out And I can't think of a more fitting one than to be here and honor the forgotten patriots. It's good that we begin to remember those gentlemen who helped us establish our country. So thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And now I'd like to welcome up past National Society Sons of the American Revolution President Joe Dooley.
So Charles was kind enough to say that I could speak for more than the usual 30 seconds for giving greetings. I'll try not to speak too long. I want to commend the Culpeper Minutemen Chapter and the Winmore Foundation for organizing this event. Those of us who are in the SAR and the DAR, what we do is we honor patriots of the American Revolution. That's what we should do. It's what we have been doing for more than 100 years for both organizations. Most of the patriots that we've organized throughout the existence of our organizations, most patriots that we've honored, have been white patriots. All patriots deserve to be honored. And it's important that we honor the black patriots. In the wake of the War for Independence, many veterans of the Revolution filed and were awarded pensions and bounty land warrants. And black patriots as well as white patriots got pensions and bounty land. How many of you have ever had occasion to read the pension applications of black veterans of the American Revolution? Raise your hand. As a body of literature concerning the War for Independence, it's probably the most poignant literature I've read. All patriots were fighting for their freedom. And yet in the pension applications for black veterans, when they say, I'm fighting for my freedom, I'm fighting to earn my freedom, to be awarded my freedom, it somehow is more poignant, more powerful than for the white veterans. White veterans didn't bother to say, I'm fighting for my freedom. For black veterans, it meant something else. Black veterans who had been enslaved literally earned their freedom, their manumission, because of their service in the war. In the wake of the revolution, there's silence concerning black veterans. It's not until 1855 that William Cooper Nell publishes the book, The Colored Patriots of the American Revolution. And I was so happy to see that Charles has a copy of that book over there. It was published in 1855. Think about that, at the height of the abolitionist movement. Just a few years before the Civil War, in which slavery would finally be abolished. William Cooper Nell, apart from publishing this book, also wrote for the North Star and the Liberator, two of the abolitionist newspapers. There isn't a lot of scholarship about black veterans of the American Revolution for more than 100 years later. Benjamin Quarles would write in 1961, The Negro in the American Revolution. And again, Charles has a copy of it over there. Take a look. More than 100 years. Notice that Nell is writing right before the Civil War, in the height of the abolitionist movement, and Quarles is publishing this book in the height of the Civil Rights Movement. A few years after Brown versus Board of Education, a couple of years before the 1964 Civil Rights Act. This is significant. It's when it seems like when the nation is aware of how some of our civil liberties are not being extended to black people, that there's scholarship about black veterans of the American Revolution. The role of blacks in the foundation of the nation comes more to the fore when awareness of their disenfranchisement is more common. I'm happy to say that in 2006, the SAR partnered with the W.E.B. Du Bois Foundation to continue research into black veterans. In 2008, members of the DAR probably know, the DAR published that book, The Forgotten Patriots of the American Revolution, concerning black and Native Americans. Also in 2008, I'll have to say that the Virginia Society erected a monument to Patriots of Color at Elam Baptist Church in Charles City County. And I'm happy to see that we continue to do that. Charles Belfield in the SAR is trying to erect a monument on Northern Neck. And here we are in Culpeper, the Culpeper Minutemen and the Winmore Foundation continue to honor black veterans. This is good, this is important, this is what we should be doing. When we honor our nation's founding, we need to honor not just the white veterans, but the black veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And now, Culpeper Minutemen past president Charles Jameson is going to give a brief history of the Patriots.
Thank you, Mark. Good day. I am Charles Jameson, past president with the Culpeper Minutemen Chapter, Virginia Society, Sons of the American Revolution, past board member of the Culpeper History Museum, but still working with the Historical Marker Committee, and also past chairman of George Washington Carver Regional High School, Incorporated, which just celebrated its 75th anniversary of the high school, which was the first 12th grade high school for African Americans in the 4 counties of Culpeper, Madison, Orange, and Rappahannock counties. I'm proud to say I'm a 1965 graduate. I'm a board member of the Carver 4-County Museum and past board member of George Washington Carver Agricultural Research Center with the new commercial kitchen at the Carver Center in Rapidan. Oh yes, the Culpeper 4th of July Festivities Committee, the NAACP, and the African American Heritage Foundation of Culpeper. I thought I was bored when I retired, really. I found out I'm not now. These groups have really spurred my interest, and then to find all this history that has passed through this area is truly amazing. Maybe as you age, history becomes more relevant and meaningful. A lot of this talk was extracted from the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution's Forgotten Patriots. All of the books read lead very closely to the same conclusions as the DAR found. Whether fighting for the British cause or for the American cause, African Americans were fighting for freedom. Excuse me. I'm a reader now. Americans were fighting for freedom. It was a freedom struggle. This was indeed the case, and all observations summarize the entire situation as a fight for freedom, not only for American colonists, but for African Americans and American Indians as well. There were many varying sides in the conflict, which for all intents and purposes was a civil war that pitted relatives, neighbors, and communities against one another. All in their own way were fighting for freedom and their own well-being. While the exact numbers remain in dispute, a very large number of African Americans fled to the British lines to escape slavery. The first wholesale promise from the British of freedom to slaves came just as the war was starting in November 1775. The last royal governor of Virginia, Lord Dunmore, having fled Williamsburg for his safety, offered freedom to slaves and indentured servants, able and willing to bear arms for the British. Dunmore's proclamation applied to slaves owned by rebels, not to slaves owned by loyalists. His offer, the realization of an oft-repeated threat, was intended as much to terrify and punish rebels and to furnish himself with more troops as to help the slaves. Blacks who answered Dunmore's call suffered hunger, disease, and bombardment. 8 times as many died of sickness as did die of battle wounds. Running away from slavery or stealing oneself, as slave owners called it at the time, was the ultimate act of a person seeking freedom. Whatever the numbers, the flight of slaves to the British speaks volumes about the institution of slavery in America. The general story and specific stories of many individuals have been told in the many publications that are included over there. The people who fled to the British lines during the Revolutionary War left widely varying histories behind them and created innumerable futures. Many went to Canada, and some eventually settled in West Africa to found the colony of Sierra Leone. Their efforts and stories did not contribute to the independence of the United States, and so are not included in these forgotten patriots. For many American Indians, such as the Cherokee, Shawnee, and Creek, as well as the most of the Iroquois, fighting on the British side was the lesser of 2 evils. Their motivation was to stem the flow of coastal settlers any further into the interior of the continent, and they felt that allegiance to the British Crown was the most likely way to achieve that goal. Other groups did their best to remain neutral. It was a freedom struggle for all of them as well, albeit an unsuccessful one in most cases. Of course, not all African Americans and American Indians held loyalist sympathies. Thousands participated in the Revolutionary War on the American side. But why? Better go to, excuse me. Sorry. This is a question that goes back to the freedom struggle. Every individual judged their own circumstances and made decisions based on those and what they hoped for in life. Their reasons for participating are probably as varied as the individuals themselves, but we are able to draw some conclusions from reading the records of their actions and activities. At the beginning of the war, most states expressly prohibited the enlistment of free blacks and slaves. The idea of giving weapons to men who might well be tempted to use them against their oppressors was frightening to the establishment. As time progressed, however, and the need for soldiers became more desperate, state after state set up systems by which slaves could earn their freedom by serving in the military and whereby free men could enlist themselves. Some could serve as substitutes in the place of their owner or someone else, with the promise of emancipation at the end of the war. Many took advantage of this as soon as the opportunity arose in their state of residence or in another state nearby. Crossing state lines was particularly common and not all that difficult in terms of distances in the Northeast. The majority of actions resulted in manumission or freedom of an enslaved man as a result of his military service occurred in the northern states. This is not to say that the practice did not happen in the middle and southern states, but the documentation is less. Some individuals who did indeed fight in the American forces were denied their freedom after the war, and several lawsuits resulted from this, with most winning their freedom. Many others probably disappeared back into slavery with no legal or financial means to protest such action. Many knew no other life or way to obtain it. So while the hope or dream of personal freedom happened for many who fought for the American cause, not all were as fortunate. Naturally, most hoped for better lives in some way and felt identifying with the American cause might bring them greater success. Freedom from slavery, contacts with others, income and bounty or land. Many, too, were inspired by the rhetoric of the period and held high that the concept of all men are created equal would extend to them when the conflict was over. Their patriotic efforts during the conflict were a step in that direction, but most were, however, terribly disappointed by reality after the war. American Indians were all born on the North American continent, of course, and then the same sentiments and situations were part of their experience as well. This is illustrated by the following statement made perhaps with American assistance in 1778 by the leaders of the St. John's Indians in Maine. The chiefs, Saxons, and young men belonging to the River St. John's have duly considered the nature of this great war between America and Old England. They are unanimous that America is right and Old England is wrong. The river on which you are with your soldiers belongs from the most ancient times to our ancestors, consequently is ours now, and which we are bound to keep for our posterity. You know we are Americans, that is our native country. You know the King of England with his evil counselors has been trying to take away the lands and liberties of our country. But God, the King of the heaven, our King, fights for us and says America shall be free. Those American Indians who did fight for the Americans were mostly from either surviving groups in the East or from other areas near the frontier. Some were individuals probably who hoped for better lives for their families and communities based on the messages delivered by the American cause and their own personal beliefs and objectives. For many native-born African Americans or enslaved men from Africa, the sea was a logical way to escape their role in life on the American seacoast, or areas just into the interior. Maritime traditions ancient to African coastal areas, of course, and they remain strong on the other side of the Atlantic as well. Not many whites wanted to be away from home and on the water for a 6-month or 1-year enlistment. The African Americans signed up for the entire war hoping to better his life, he was free and to gain his freedom for his enlistment. The African American was noted for his abilities to know the waters and the backwaters and were noted as excellent pilots. The fact that a ship is dependent upon its entire crew doing their part was an appeal that brought many men to serve on privateers, merchant ships, and naval vessels. There were also American Indian men from coastal areas, particularly in New England, who were involved in these same activities. Naval or maritime participation was a significant contribution to the war effort, as well as search for freedom within the broader context of supporting the American struggle for independence. This procedure typified an attitude toward the African American enlistment that would prevail in America's future wars. From the colonial times until the 20th century, the African American would be bypassed in early stages of conflict. But as the struggle grew arduous, civilian authorities and military commanders would turn to the one great remaining manpower pool, and the African American would emerge from his status of rejection and inferiority to become a comrade in arms. When speaking of comrade in arms, most black soldiers were scattered throughout the integrated Continental Army. Several all-black units commanded by white officers also were formed due to lack of white enlistments and substitutions and saw action against the British. Rhode Island's Black Battalion was established in 1778 when that state was unable to meet its quota for the Continental Army. The legislature agreed to set free slaves who volunteered for the duration of the war and compensated their owners for their value. Therefore, African American participation was usually for the duration of the war, and whereas others could enlist for 6 months to 1 year terms. The Rhode Island Regiment performed bravely throughout the war and was present at Yorktown, where an observer noted it was the most neatly dressed, the best under arms, and the most precise in its maneuvers. At our Yorktown Victory Museum, it was stated that the majority of African Americans had routine jobs, such as building fortifications. Of the approximately 9,000, at least 5,000 served on the lines. A few serving as orderlies gained renown for serving well-known military leaders. Check on these noted African Americans from the Revolutionary War. Crispus Attucks was an American stevedore of African and Native American descent, widely regarded as the first person killed in the Boston Massacre, and thus the first killed in the American Revolution. William Flora, my hero, and to my awakening, a hero at Great Bridge, a free man from Portsmouth, Virginia, who was one of the heroes as a sentry from Princess Anne County and who fought alongside the Culpeper Minutemen at Great Bridge. The same William Flora reported to duty for the Battle of 1812 with the same musket. The Virginia Society now honors the patriot with the Billy Flora Medal. He stood his ground so that we could stand ours. Salem Poor, a free man from his valor and intrepidity at Bunker Hill, who had a petition submitted by 14 officers who had been on the field that day suggesting the Continental Congress itself bestow the reward due to so great and distinguished character. Later, from the Battle of Charleston, Massachusetts, it was reported that Salem Poor behaved like a well-experienced officer as well as an excellent soldier. Salem Poor is a brave and gallant soldier. There is no record of reward, but now stands a monument. James Armstead Lafayette, friend to French General Lafayette. As a spy, Armstead informed Lafayette and Washington about approaching British reinforcements, which allowed the generals to devise a blockade, impeding enemy advancements. This success resulted in a major final victory for the colonists when Lord Cornwallis surrendered in 1781. Armstead won his manumission in 1787. William Lee, servant and friend to General Washington. When asking General Washington if he could bring his wife, a free woman of Philadelphia, to Mount Vernon, Washington reluctantly agreed. I cannot refuse his request, as he has lived with me so long and followed my fortunes through the war with fidelity. Prince Whipple, bodyguard to General Whipple, who was aide to General Washington. He appeared in the 2 paintings of Washington crossing the Delaware. From former public affairs officer to General Norman Schwarzkopf, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Lee Lanning's documentation from his African Americans in the Revolutionary War also reveals that the African American responded well to the military and were noted as being well drilled and more apt to military service and following orders. Sort of makes sense to me. I hope you have enjoyed hearing a little of our forgotten history, but I'll leave you with this question that was raised concerning the Founding Fathers and their courage to make all men equal. One of the most interesting and thought-provoking books that I read is by historian Gary Nash from his Harvard lectures, Creating the Forgotten Fifth, sketching a complex and gripping tale of a road not taken by our Founding Fathers toward true equality at the time of our nation's founding. Could our Founding Fathers have addressed this racial inequality and possibly avoided the conflicts and deaths that would arise in the future years? I would like to thank the SAR for awakening me to these long hidden and forgotten stories. Also, thanks to the National Society of the Daughters of American Revolution for their research and contribution for acknowledgement of those forgotten patriots. And finally, at our Vassar annual meeting in Richmond a few years ago, I met quite a few of our compatriots and wives from all over the state. I already considered the SAR a very inclusive group with our initiatives. At this meeting, we met our new compatriots from the Nazamon Indian tribe here in Virginia. The SAR and DAR are proud of their ancestors' contributions in the struggle for America's freedom and wish all history to be told. This is American history which should be remembered and shared, as these patriots, like others, must not be forgotten. If there are any questions, hopefully they can be answered, as we have quite a few resources right over there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Charles. Very informative. At this time, we're going to call the roll of the known Patriots of Color from Culpeper County, and the Culpeper Minutemen SAR Chapter Color Guard Chairman Michael Dennis is going to ring a bell in commemoration. So I'd like to call up Michelle Tutt, President of the AAHA.
Culpeper County had many patriots of color, both free and enslaved, who fought and aided our country in the Revolutionary War. The number listed below includes 19 free and 1 enslaved from Culpeper. There are a couple of additions not numbered from the counties of Culpeper, counties of Fauquier, Orange, who were part of the Culpeper Minutemen territory. There are many unknown others, some only listed by name and owned by. We'll be doing Spencer, A. Hackley will be doing Spencer.
Yeah, that'll be last. Spencer's going to be last.
Oh, okay. Okay, it was a little confusing. So he's going to do that, okay. Francis Bunday. Bunday was a soldier born in Caroline County, living there on 30th March 1779 when he enlisted in the Revolution at age 18. He was enlisted in Captain Kirkpatrick's Company 4th Virginia Regiment, Continental Line, under Colonel Thomas Gaskins, remaining in service for 3 years and 6 months. He was at the Siege of Yorktown and discharged at Winchester Barracks. He was listed in 1810 as a free Negro, head of Culpeper County household of 5 other free. He was a resident of Culpeper County when he applied for a pension in 1820. Thomas Bunday Bunday. In 1863, he was listed as a mulatto man with 12 to 13 years to serve when listed in the Culpeper County estate of Humphrey Brook. Thomas was listed in Eckenrode's supplemental list of those serving in the Revolutionary War. In 1810, Thomas Bunday was listed as a free Negro, head of a Culpeper County household of one other free. William Bunday was taxable in Culpeper County in Reuben Zimmerman's household in 1787. And in 1810, he was listed as a free mulatto, head of a Culpeper County household of 5 that were free, called William Bunday. He was listed in Eckenrode's list of Revolutionary War soldiers from Virginia supplement and was listed amongst the soldiers who had served 3 years.
Thank you, Michelle. Our next reader is Evelyn Madden.
Thomas Campbell, also spelled Campbell. From pension application R-1609, 72-year-old Thomas Campbell appeared in Madison County, New York's open court in 1832, stating he had entered the service of the United States. This applicant could neither read nor write and had no documentary evidence that he could procure. He stated that, as near as he could remember, he had enlisted for 3 years in September 1776. He served with the 4th Virginia Regiment, and 6 days after he enlisted, they were marched to White Marsh, Pennsylvania, where he remained with the Army of Valley Forge. Afterwards, he served at the Battle of Monmouth, where most of the company he served were killed, and he became very sick from fatigue. He was placed in a hospital and ended up remaining in New York with a family who had assisted him. Thomas was a slave with Colonel Martin Pickett of Culpeper, Virginia, who gave him the option of either remaining as a slave as he was, or to go into the Army and be free. Thomas chose the Army and freedom. William Clark, also spelled with an E. William Clark was a mulatto taxable in Culpeper County from 1790 to 1801. In December of 1812, he was listed as head of a Culpeper household of 7 other free mulattoes. In 1816, he obtained free papers in Culpeper to visit relatives in Ross County, Ohio. A SAR monument to his war service is located there. However, it was later proven that William returned to Culpeper to apply for his Revolutionary War pension in 1820. We know that he served in the 15th Regiment of Virginia, and on May 29, 1780, he avoided death or capture at the Battle of Waxhaws or Buford's Massacre in Charleston, South Carolina, by being sent on another assignment. When he was returning, he ran into Colonel John Jameson and his men and served to the end of the war as soldier servant to Jameson. Wintering at Valley Forge and at the battles of Germantown and Monmouth, William was probably around to hear talk about Benedict Arnold and West Point. In 1812, since Colonel Jameson was deceased, his brother, Colonel David Jameson, provided statements to the court that he had personally heard his brother speak of the services of the said Clark during the Revolutionary War, and that he spoke of him in very high terms. He then added that he verily believed, from what he had heard, that William continued his service to the end of the war. This William Clark was an ancestor of the Maddens from Madden's Tavern, and information can be found in the book, We Were Always Free. William's grave is marked by the Virginia Society Sons of the American Revolution.
Thank you, Evelyn. Our next reader is Zan Nelson, Culpeper historian.
Zachariah Hill, son of the free mulatto Hannah Hill, was bound out in Culpeper County on 18 May 1758. He was 24 in 1777 when he complained he was treated as a slave to the Halifax County Courthouse. The court ordered him released. He was paid for serving in the Halifax militia in 1781. He was listed as a mulatto taxable in the Southern District of Halifax County in 1806 to 1812. Zachariah was head of a Sullivan County, Tennessee household of 7 free colored in 1830. Luke Hughes was listed among the slaves in Cadwalader Dade's estate inventory, which was proved in Stafford County on 14 July 1761, stating, quote, Luke to serve till 31, end quote. He was listed in the payrolls of Captain Robert Powell and Captain Reuben Briscoe in the 3rd Regiment in August 1778. He was listed as a mulatto taxable in Culpeper County from 1798 to 1802, and was listed as a free mulatto head of a Culpeper household of 3 other free in 1810. Joseph Hughes, enlisted in the Revolution in Culpeper County, Virginia, December 1781, age 31. High black complexion, a planter, born in Newcastle, Virginia.
Thank you, Zan. And now Simone Logan, AAHA.
Benjamin Newell. Benjamin Newell, age 28, enlisted as a substitute while a resident of Culpeper County on September 20th, 1780. He was described as having a high yellow complexion. Benjamin Newell was born in Gloucester County. James Peters. James Peters was a seaman on the payroll of the galley Henry. Lieutenant Joshua Singleton certified on August 16, 1787, that James Peters served on the galley Henry from January 1777 to January 1780. James Peters was a mulatto. He was taxed in Culpeper County from 1789 through 1802. Philip Phillips. Philip Phillips was described as black complexioned. He was a soldier born in Fauquier. A planter, he entered the service as a substitute in Culpeper County. He enlisted on April 29, 1781 for 1.5 years. Taxed in Culpeper County from 1787 through 1802. On August 20th, 1781, William Roberts sold Mr. Phillips 130 acres in Culpeper County for only 5.6 pounds, a very reasonable price, which may have been his way of paying him back for substituting. In 1820, Philip Phillips was listed as head of a Loudoun County household of 12 free colored people in 1820.
Thank you, Simone. Now, Martha Menton, Culpeper Minutemen, DAR.
John Rawls, or Rawls with a WLS, was residing in Carolina County when he was drafted into the Revolution from Culpeper County. He served in the company commanded by Captain Reuben Fields in the Continental Line for 18 months. He was in the Battle of Guilford Courthouse and the Siege of Yorktown. John had relocated to the Shenandoah Valley, but John's service was verified by the Justice of the Peace, David Jameson of Culpeper. Jonathan Ross. He served as a fifer in the Revolutionary War. He was listed as a mulatto, taxable on a horse in Culpeper County from 1782 to 1802. Jonathan and Reuben Ross were brothers from Culpeper County. They walked home and settled in the county. They married, purchased land, and protected their families by living together on the same land. Reuben Ross. He was on the payroll of Captain Edward Stevens' company of the 10th Virginia Regiment from June 1777 to the end of the war. He married Sally Terrell on 25 October 1791. On the 3rd of June, 1799, he and his family sold 2 lots in Stevensburg. In 1810, he was listed as a free mulatto, head of the house in Culpeper County, 9 other free, and a white woman. David Ross. Of Culpeper, enlisted for 3 years under Captain Patrick Wright in September 1777. He served in Colonel Thomas Marshall's Regiment of State Artillery. In May of 1779, he was put on board the Brigate Orion to go pirating under Captain William Lewis. Upon his return, he enlisted in Major John Nelson's Light Horse.
Thank you, Martha. And now Della Edrington, Culpeper Minutemen, DAR.
Thomas Shaw. Thomas enlisted for 18 months as a substitute in Culpeper County in September 1780. At the age of 40, he was 5 foot 4 inches and 3/4. His complexion was all black. He was a planter who was born in Stafford and a resident of Culpeper County. Joseph Tyler. Tyler was a slave that was called Indian Joe. He sued for his freedom from Charles Hutherson, who was the executor of John Thompson's estate in Louisa County, on July 13, 1767. Joe was described as a mulatto or Indian man in Gabriel Jones' company of Marines in Culpeper County in 1777. William Underwood, alias Wedgebear, enlisted in Culpeper County for the length of the war in the Revolution on March 9, 1780. He was 19 years old, of high yellow complexion, and born in Loudoun County. In 1800, William Underwood was head of a household in Wikes County, North Carolina, with 9 other free persons.
Thank you, Della. And now Tom Hamill, Culpeper Minutemen, SAR.
Moses Watkins, son-in-law of James Nickens, he served as a soldier in the infantry. He was a mulatto, taxable in Culpeper County from 1789 to 1794, and was listed as a Negro, taxable in Fauquier County from 1797 to 1807. Henry Welsh, enlisted in the Revolution from Culpeper County for 18 months on the 19th of March in 1781. He was 19 years of age, was described as having a high yellow complexion. He was born in King George County.
Thank you, Tom. And now Leroy Hackley, who is a descendant of the Slaughters.
Spencer Slaughter. This is a quote. "The snow was knee-deep all the winter and stained with the blood from the naked feet of the soldiers." This was written at Valley Forge, 1777 to 1778, from the diary of Philip Slaughter. A pair of Culpeper men suffered through this winter together. Philip Pendleton Slaughter, a captain only 20 years old, and Spencer, a young enslaved man. Spencer, sent by Phil's father to accompany his son during the war. He endured the same, if not more, privations that winter at Valley Forge and during crucial battles at Trenton, Germantown, Monmouth, and Brandywine. Phil had joined the Culpeper Minutemen in 1775 when he was 15, marching to Williamsburg to confront the royal governor. When the crisis passed, Phil returned home to his studies. A year later, he rejoined as a second lieutenant in Captain Gabriel Long's riflemen, part of the 11th Virginia Regiment. This time, Spencer went with him, leaving behind family members, including his mother, Hannah. According to one family story, while with Washington's troops, Phil got word that his sweetheart, Margaret Strawler, was being courted by another. He dispatched Spencer with a letter to her. Accomplishing this trip on horseback, some 500 miles, Spencer returned with a message from Margaret, reassuring Phil of her fidelity. After the war, they wed. Phil and Spencer served together at the various battles in New Jersey and Pennsylvania and spent that cold winter in Valley Forge. By that time, Phil was a captain, acting as quartermaster, paymaster, and clothier. Spencer cooked meals for the soldiers, an accomplished horseman who later had charge of the Slaughter stables. He likely also took care of company horses at Valley Forge and at other sites. After the war, Spencer and Philip returned to Culpeper. Phil married, began a law practice, and attended many revolutionary reunions, including ones with General Lafayette, a revolutionary who believed in the inherent equality of blacks. Spencer returned to his status as an enslaved man. Phil's parents formally transferred ownership of Spencer to Phil. They also gave him 377 acres on Cedar Mountain, on which enslaved men built his home, Springfield. Both Phil and Spencer raised families in the 1790s. Phil and Margaret had 3 daughters and a son. Spencer and his wife, Grace, 3 daughters. Phil's journals placed Spencer and Grace as part of the Slaughter household, receiving their allocation of winter blankets and listed in his annual inventory of Negroes. Slaughter also notes the death of Spencer's mother, Hannah, in 1807. After the death of his wife in 1802, Phil remarried and had 4 more children, including Ann Mercer Slaughter. Ann Mercer, an original daughter of the American Revolution, told vivid stories of Spencer, his wife Grace, and other enslaved people at Springfield. She recounted these stories to her niece, Jane Chapman Slaughter, who wrote them down. Jane, born a decade after her grandfather Phil's death, had heard similar stories from her father and uncle, who were Ann's brothers. Ann Mercer specifically remembered Spencer, regaling the young people with stories of the British surrender at Yorktown. In the 1830s, he became the daughter's chaperone. When young men asked to call, he carried their request to the captain. At Springfield, Spencer had absolute authority over the stables, who could ride what horses or drive which carriage. Phil, in his journal, described Spencer as a trusted wagoneer, carrying products to and from the farm as well as from Slaughter's mill, which milled flour, sawed logs, and aged whiskey. Spencer also transported goods to Fredericksburg and picked up items for the family, including fish from the Tidewater area. He frequently carted family and friends visiting to and from various parts of the state. Spencer's wife, Grace, was described as the dairy goddess, who presided over the butter, cream, and milk. In the spring and summer, when the family ate supper outside near the spring house, Grace arrived with a big hamper of hot corn pones on her head, an image that harkened back to her African roots. By the mid-1830s, Phil, now a widower in his mid-70s, moved with his enslaved people to the farm owned by son Daniel French Strother Slaughter, Brandywine, named after the battle. From Phil's family records emerges Grace and Spencer's daughters, Becky, Rachel, and Alice, with Alice becoming the matriarch of the Culpeper Slaughters after she bore a second Rachel, who we'll call Rachel II. Rachel II, at emancipation, and her husband Richie had children, Cornelia, Joshua, and Ann. Ann, who became known as the Grandma Ann of the Culpeper Slaughters. I don't want to take all the recognition. I have siblings, nieces, and nephews here, so I'm going to ask them. We've had family reunions, and we've recognized Grandma Ann, and if you guys would stand up so you can be recognized, so I'm not getting all the credit here. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Only a few years after the Civil War in 1870, Joshua, grandson of Spencer and Grace, bought land near Winston, still a home place to Ann's descendants. My parents and her brothers and sisters were raised there. There were actually 13 of us. We were all raised in the same house, the home that was built back then. So after Spencer and Grace died, daughter Alice appeared in the 1870 census, living still near Cedar Mountain, and the mother of Spencer Coleman, employed by Ann Mercer's son. So Revolutionary Spencer's name was passed on through generations who no longer knew its origin. These descendants became teachers and government officials, musicians, and farmers, migrating to cities like Philadelphia and Washington, or many of them are still living here in Culpeper. So we not only survived, we prevailed, creating meaningful lives and continuing a legacy of adventure and hard work. So through Phil's revolutionary service, it has been corroborated by several sources, including affidavits submitted by his pension, remembrances in his farm journal, and multiple membership applications to the DAR and SAR. Spencer was with him every step of the way and should be recognized likewise. So on behalf of my family, we appreciate this opportunity to present Spencer for this honor. Thank you.
I would just like to thank Leroy for flying in. Where, Michigan?
From Michigan.
From Michigan for this. And also, I would like to thank Catherine Slaughter
Yes.
for bringing this history out. Otherwise, this wouldn't have been known. There were many we don't know about. There were many, many, many we don't know about. Some remained enslaved, and for her to come out and tell the story, and of Spencer remaining enslaved for the family, it stores that 500-mile ride. You know, you don't not understand all of it, but it's quite a story. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I want to thank all the readers. I think reading the stories aloud gives a little different insight, you know, than just reading words on a page, you know, from a book or something along those lines. So thanks to everybody that spoke on behalf of the Patriots. So right now, Etta Lambert, representing the Freedom Foundation.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I want to thank all of you all for participating today in bringing this marvelous program to us. As the Director of Diversity Programming with Winmore, it's been a wonderful collaboration. And know in my heart, if you need anything else and you need more space, you're always welcome. Please contact me. But I'm here today because my cousin, Howard Lambert, is the president of Freedom Foundation, which is doing some work also in this county. You can go to our website at freedomfoundationva.org or our Facebook page, Freedom Foundation VA. I wanted to share with you, in his absence, he was supposed to be here but got called out of town, so he sends his regrets. And I just wanted to bring to your attention that Freedom Foundation's mission is to promote for the benefit of the general public the history, contributions, and legacy of Culpeper County, Virginia-born United States Colored Troops, USCTS, as well as residents of Culpeper during the American Civil War who contributed to securing freedom for its enslaved people. The primary focus shall be Culpeper-born residents. However, the stories and sacrifices of all colored soldiers and their officers during the American Civil War shall also be told through advocacy and education. I also wanted to bring to your attention that we will be having on February the 22nd at 10 a.m. to noon at the Culpeper Library. Freedom Foundation's annual meeting is there. You're welcome to attend. One of the things also that this organization was involved in, there's a plaque for Madden's Tavern. It also honors Ebenezer Baptist Church and Willis Madden, a free black man who owned Madden's Tavern. So there's work being done. We'd love to have you as a part of it. I also sit on that board as well, and I wanted to make sure that we got a mention today. Thank you all for allowing us to do so, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Etta. And at this time, I'd like to have Culpeper Minutemen SAR past president Tom Hamill come up for the presentation of the wreaths.
All right, we have a number of organizations here that would like to render honor to the African-American troops. Due to logistics, I think it's probably easiest if you merely stand, render your honor, then sit back down and try and get everyone over to where their wreaths are. So we'll start with the Virginia Society, SAR, our president, Bill Grief. Next is the Culpeper Minutemen Chapter, SAR, our Vice President, Mark Crane. The Culpeper Minutemen Chapter, DAR, Martha Minton. Colonel James Wood II Chapter, SAR, their President, Paul Christensen. There's Paul. There he is. The West Virginia Pack Horse Chapter, DAR, Michelle Phillips. The Sergeant Major John Champ Chapter, SAR, President Barry Schwar. Then the Elizabeth McIntosh Hamill, DAR, Paula Schwar. Fauquier Courthouse Chapter, DAR, Kat Schwecke. And finally, for the Fairfax Resolve Chapter of the SAR, James Cordes.
Now, if we could have past President of the Culpeper Minutemen, William Schwecke, give a benediction.
Would you please rise and join me as I ask for our Father's blessing on us as we take the message we have just heard and spread it to the rest of the world. May God bless us all with a loving sense of His near presence. May He guide and protect us as we continue on the journey begun by each and every one of our patriot ancestors. Now, as we, for a time, take up our separate ways, let us share the ideals of our patriot ancestors with each and every citizen, resident, and visitor of this wonderful country, and trust that as we do this, He is with us, now and forevermore. Amen.
I will lead us in the SAR recessional. Until we meet again, let us remember our obligations to our forefathers who gave us our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, an independent Supreme Court, and a nation of free men. Thank you again.